Today we're going to be talking about why LGBTQ is very evil, as you can see from the thumbnail. Recently, or not even recently, depends on what recently is, but in the past couple of years or decades, LGBTQ communities have been popping up a lot, and a lot of what I call gayification. If you don't know what gayification is, basically just a thing I made up myself to describe what's happening. But gayification is like basically all these communities are like turning to support LGBTQ and all this stuff. And you have Pride Month where company logos are changing, Discord server logos are changing to celebrate this awful month. And I'm going to be explaining why it's awful. There is an actual natural reason for why it is very evil. There is, of course, since I'm Christian, there's also a Christian reason for this too. It's pretty simple. Um, well, anyway, let's get into it. So, on my site of Infinity, um, Elena, one of my server members, gives a reason, which I'll put it on screen. But basically, this argument is talking about if you take like a gay relationships cannot produce children. They just can't. It has to involve some sort of straight intercession for a child to be born. So basically, straight people support the population. See, what people will say to me is like, "Oh, well, you just take like sperm cells and like insert them into whatever the crap they want." No, that's not into like a woman or something. And no, that comes from a straight person. That the sperm cells come from a straight person. All these like literally birth has to come from a straight relationship. That's just basically how it is. I mean, and there's like no technology out there that's even come close to like making like birth from like non-straight relations at all. It's always come from straight relationships. So straight people support this population clearly. I mean, that's just how biology works. You have to have an egg cell and you have to have a sperm cell. And egg cells come from women, sperm cells come from men. So you just have to have a straight relationship to have kids. You could adopt, the gay relationship could adopt kids, but where do those kids come from? A straight relationship. So everything comes from a straight relationship. Or all these kids come from a straight relationship. I shouldn't say everything broadly. Kids come from straight relationships. So straight relationships support a population. Now, that's basically what this argument is talking about because straight people support the population. It inflicts a sort of selfish mentality because gay relationships, they're only basically existing there because two people wanted to have a gay relationship because for their own selfish desires, basically their own. It could be lustful, it could be romantical, and it could be some sort of selfish desire because straight relationships were there to support you know kids. Relationships in general, like any like romantic relationship, was there to support kids. It was there to make kids. That's how it's been naturally, and that's basically how God intended it too. The relationships were there to support kids. That's how it's been for thousands of years. They've basically been there. I mean, if you're like an evolutionist, believe in evolution, you could say that that um, evolution basically made our brains work so that we you know have like these hormones and everything, because hormones they're for emotional attachment and things like that, but they're there so that we have the emotion of lust, romantics, and stuff like that, so that the population could reproduce, so that the human race could reproduce. And God specifically intended that. He wanted these relationships to be intended for to support a family. because that's basically the biggest use of a relationship. There's no other use for that. So if a relationship is not about, supporting the population, not making kids or anything like that, it's inherently selfish because it's only for that person's desire, which is basically what the argument is talking about. You could also say if you have a homosexual relationship, it's basically like a high school relationship. High school relationships, you can't like support a population with that because those high school relationships, I don't know. Let's take like a 15-year-old girl and like a 16-year-old guy in like America or something. So obviously it's not pedophiles or anything. Um, well, you say they have a relationship. They can't have kids because of course they're kids themselves. So they can't have kids, and why those relationships always die in high school is because the relationship is pointless. It's only for selfish desire, and it's only bearing emotional weight for basically no reason. So it's like I'm pretty sure you can see what I mean now. You have a homosexual relationship, you can connect that to basically high school relationships. High school relationships were basically only there for selfish desire. They were only there so that those two people could have a relationship, and there's basically nothing else. Rarely do those high school relationships actually make it on, because those relationships, could possibly make it on and go to marriage, but that's very rare because you know, teenagers and hormones, those kind of things, those get around. But it's basically the same thing with homosexuals. With homosexual relationships, there's like no point of them. They don't produce children, which was the whole point of like sex and basically reproduction in these romantic relationships. The whole point of them was to make kids. And here you have these homosexuals, and they don't do that. So basically, the relationship is pointless. It serves nothing. So that's why they're basically stupid, and they could drive societies into the ground, because that's not really good to have in a society if you have a bunch of selfish-minded people. Because that's what homosexuals are. They are selfish-minded people because their relationships drive a selfish motive in their head, because their motive is to like be with this take a guy. This guy just wants to be with another guy, and there's like no point in the relationship other than that. It's inherently selfish because like he's not like helping the society in any way. He's just adding emotional weight to his life for no reason, and taking up time for no reason, just to be in like some relationship that ultimately does nothing because they can't reproduce because it's another guy. It's a homosexual relationship. Okay. Now, as opposed to that, we have straight relationships. With straight relationships, they have a purpose, because of course straight relationships, they were intended to they were made to reproduce and support the population. So they have use. So that's why straight relationships are ultimately good. And I'm pretty sure it's as simple as that. That is why homosexuality is evil. And you can prove it with your own logic, reason, morality. It's a very, very simple argument that my friend Elena made. And in this video, I was just talking about it a little bit more deeper, because her explanation is a little bit more broad. It doesn't go into much detail, but I wanted to go a little bit more into detail in here. Now let's actually talk about these LGBTQ communities and stuff like that, because we've seen like LGBTQ communities are like infecting all over the place. Now, going back to that argument, homosexuals are selfish, right? That's what I'm claiming right now. Well, if you look at Pride Month, Pride is just another form of selfishness. So that basically just supports what I'm saying, that homosexuals are selfish, because they literally have an entire month for Pride. They have an entire month to be selfish. So it literally just connects all the dots. Homosexuals are selfish. Anyway, Pride Month, of course, since it's very selfish, of course, it has a lot of stuff wrong with it. I'm pretty sure, in my last video, I went over this, where, in these Pride parades, they'll have children in there, and in Pride parades, they'll have really weird stuff. Like, I've searched up Pride just on Google, and you can see men with, like, barely any clothing on, some of them with their shirts off. And even in my last video, I think I gave a couple of screenshots of, like, disgusting stuff that happens in these Pride parades. Like, men kissing, like, full-grown men kissing children. Like, it's really weird. And there's clips online of these, drag queens. So I think you've heard of the drag drama. I'm pretty sure. If you haven't, you could literally just search up, like, a drag queen drama, basically on YouTube, and there's tons of these clips of drag queens doing really weird stuff around children, and it is a problem. Of course, there's homosexuals out there that acknowledge this problem, but of course they still don't know that, all homosexual relations are just evil inherently. But anyway, some acknowledge this, but these things are just stemming from selfishness. Because these drag queens, they're inherently selfish. Because they're just trying to, like, pull these kids in because they're lustful, and lust is selfish. It's an inherently selfish thing. So again, more of the dots are connecting now that homosexuals are selfish. And while these drag queens may not be homosexuals, some of them I think they are. And there's also trans. Trans is just the whole train wreck. I don't even know why people think trans is a good thing. It is very, very easy to prove why trans is stupid. Because you cannot change your gender. You can't. You can't change your sex. You can't change your gender. And there'll be people out there that'll argue that, like, gender and sex are not the same thing. Which they basically are, because why do we need all these thousands of genders? We just don't need them. They don't make sense. They're just more like personalities. Just rename genders to personalities if you're gonna say that there's these thousands of genders. Like, no, those are just personalities that basically they're making up. So gender and sex, same thing. But you cannot change your gender or sex. You can't change it. You can't change it. You are inherently born to be a male or a female. And if you want to change that, you'd basically have to rewrite your entire genetic code, basically. Like, most of it, you'd have to rewrite. And, obviously there's not, any technology for that. And even then, in the Christian sense, you can't change, like, your soul. Which, your soul, God sent you a soul, of course. Your soul was male or female. And that was specifically for your soul. Because God intended you to be, male or female. And if God intended you to do that, then if you being transgender is basically saying to God, well, no, you were wrong. I was supposed to be female. And God can't be wrong. So that means you're wrong. So that's why transgender is really stupid. If you're changing your gender in a Christian sense, you're basically just saying that God was wrong about you, which it's either God was wrong or you were wrong. And since God is perfect and can't make mistakes, that means you're wrong. So if there's any trans Christians out there, they're just heretical. They're straight heretics. Anyway, I also have been seeing, lots of communities. If I had to, like, describe LGBTQ, it would be a parasite, because it's going around these communities, like, Discord communities, or maybe these companies too. They've been going around like parasite, like leeches. That's how to describe LGBTQ, and basically have infected these communities. So now, they're supporting Pride Month. They're supporting all these things. We're just promoting something that's ultimately evil. And basically, what Satan has been trying to do is basically been trying to, like, gaslight everybody and saying, well, if you don't support homosexuality, then you're homophobic and you're bad, and homophobic is associated with all these bad things, when really homophobia is just correct. It's not bad at all, it's correct. And homophobia is like against, LGBTQ and homosexuality. And I've already said and already proven that homosexuality is evil, so that makes homophobia justified. So that means homophobia is actually good. So basically, what the devil is trying to do is basically make homophobia look bad and all this evil and all this stuff. Because, I think there's even on YouTube like a homophobia like therapy session kind of crap, and it's really really stupid. And what I'll also see from LGBTQ is they'll try and use what the devil is doing, and they'll try and do these gaslighting, manipulative crap. I mean, it's a very real thing. Trust me. Like, back when I was like in sixth grade, I had these kids. And there's one kid that was my friend, and he turned transgender, and he also was gaslighting me that I would figure out later on. If you really look into these LGBTQ communities, you can see like very manipulative tendencies, because when you're selfish, it creates narcissism. Because overwhelming selfishness, overwhelming pride creates narcissism. What's also a narcissism? Manipulation. Manipulation is a big thing about narcissism. So that's why you will be able to see all these like LGBT and some LGBTQ members, they'll be very manipulative. And of course, I've exposed manipulators before on my channel, so I can smell manipulation from a mile away. I can tell if somebody's manipulative or not very easily. And trust me, LGBTQ, very manipulative community. And honestly, you can prove it by reason itself, because I've already proved that homosexuals are selfish, and there's tons of evidence around it that I've explained. There's Pride Month, there's these drag queens trying to do this really weird stuff with kids, and there's homosexual relationships ultimately selfish, all this stuff. Again, homosexuality, very selfish. And so what selfishness creates? Narcissism, because narcissism is ultimately a very high level of selfishness and pride. And of course, that LGBTQ has like a whole month around pride. So ultimately what this creates is a high level of narcissism. And what's in narcissism? Manipulation. Manipulation is a big thing around narcissism. So that's why a lot of these LGBTQ members are probably narcissists or just manipulators in general. I'd say a really good amount of them are. And this is just proven by reason alone. Again, I don't really have to give you a chart or like a graph or like any proof of this. You can just prove it by reason. It's like, I don't need to like physically give you a graph or like a study, some weird study from like a random college, university, whatever the crap. I can just prove this by the reason. It's very, very simple. Now you might ask, like, existence. Well, of course, LGBTQ, there's homosexuals, there's trans. So you already explained that trans are really evil. What about, like, non-binary or bisexual? Well, first of all, bisexual is basically just, basically the person just saying, they're like, am I homosexual or am I straight? And it's like, well, if you're homosexual, you're selfish. So they're just basically, bisexuals are just confused. They're just confused on their life. They're just basically bisexuals, just basically what they tell me is that they don't know how to live their life. They're very stupid, because they can't pick whether they're straight or homosexual, or you can flip this up the script. Maybe they want to be both homosexual and straight because they have lustful tendencies. They're just that deep in lustfulness that they just do lustful things with either gender. And that could also be the case. And in that case, it's even worse. That's really, really bad. Pansexual, where you like both genders, same thing. They could just be a really lustful person if you're pansexual. You could be a really lustful person because you just want to be both with like men and female, and that's just terrible, because that shows a high level of lust. That shows like you're very, very lustful. That could also be a good case. But what I find most common is that bisexuals, pansexuals, they just don't know about life. They've just been indoctrinated too much to the point that they don't know which gender they like. Which, of course, it's straight. Like you should like straight. You should be in a straight relationship. Okay, you should like straight people. And I've proven that. Now, with non-binary, where you don't like any gender, well, that's also basically inherently selfish. Because, like, okay, well, you don't like this gender, you don't like this gender. Okay, so what are you doing? Now, with non-binary, scriptural sense, you don't have to be in a relationship. Okay, so with non-binary, it's like, well, if you're a straight person, you can just choose not to be in a relationship. Does that make them non-binary? No. What makes somebody non-binary is they're like actively promoting not being, you know, straight or having a straight relationship, which is evil because then it's like promoting, like saying, like, hey, don't be in a relationship. And that's bad for the society because now you're not supporting it that much anymore, even at all, if you're successful on that. So that's why non-binary is kind of evil. And even then, that's why I'd say like non-binary is selfish because like it's it's basically you're basically just inflicting your own beliefs on other people, and you're basically just priding yourself for not liking either gender. Because like if you don't like either gender and you don't date anybody, well, you could just say you don't date anybody. Why do you have to like make an entire gender thing for it? Just say you don't like anybody, but you could still be straight if you don't. You could still be straight and not like anybody, and not have a relationship at all. Because in Catholicism, those people are basically called a religious brother, a religious sister, and they basically just help out the society in other ways they can by being like maybe like a priest or a bishop or something like that, or a nun if you're a sister. They didn't say that they were non-binary. They didn't pride themselves for choosing that choice. It's just what they felt called to do. They didn't like make an entire flag for it either and pride themselves that they're non-binary, whatever the crap. And pride themselves that they choose either gender. They just they were felt called to do with their position, and they didn't actively promote it. They didn't make an entire like thing about it. They just felt called to do that, and you could call them straight too, because if they had the choice between no relationship, and if they didn't have like the choice to like, if they had to be in a relationship, they would have chose straight, because of course they wouldn't be homosexual, because that's inherently evil. So basically, they're just straight people, just not in a relationship, and you don't have to make non-binary thing to explain that. Because you don't have to classify that as non-binary. Non-binary just seems selfish because it's just like priding yourself for not being in a relationship or choosing either gender, which is very stupid because it's like is like why are you priding yourself? Why are you being selfish? Why are you like priding yourself and like trying to make yourself feel good for just choosing no gender or choosing not no gender, choosing like not to have a relationship at all? Or not, not choosing to have a straight relationship or a gay relationship. Because it's like, I mean, at least it's better than having a homosexual relationship. I would say it's better. Because a homosexual relationship, you're just actively doing something evil. Non-binary, I think it's like it's less to the degree of homosexuals. But it's very, very stupid. It's very, 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 very stupid. You're just priding yourself on doing basically nothing. Anyway, basically, that's me tearing into every single LGBTQ, whatever the crap, the entire alphabet. Again, all these genders and things that LGBTQ itself is just inherently evil. If people say it's not, they're just insane. Because it's a very insane thing. LGBTQ, very, very insane thing. And I don't know why people think it's like this, like, oh yeah, another thing I wanted to talk about is LGBTQ having this whole entire movement thing of being accepting, stuff like that. And basically them wanting you to accept them into their societies or communities and stuff like that. Basically, it's just the devil saying, hey, let me in your house so that I can, show you all these evil things. That's basically all it is. Because you don't want to tolerate something inherently evil in your house, you know? God wouldn't tolerate the devil in his kingdom. So why should you tolerate, the devil in like your own nation or your own house or your own room or maybe your own state? There's no tolerance for evil. And LGBTQ is basically with their acceptance thing, their entire thing about being accepting all this is just basically against that. It's basically saying, hey, no, you should tolerate evil. You should tolerate our evils. That's basically what LGBTQ is saying here. And it's very, very wrong. This is, no, do not accept LGBTQ. It's an inherently evil thing, so it should not be accepted anywhere. It should be eradicated. Because it is an inherently evil thing. Of course, people will not like me saying that it should be eradicated, but it really should, because it's just evil. Evil should not exist, should not be allowed to exist. Because it being allowed to exist, then it will spread. Because just like LGBTQ has, it's like a parasite. It just spreads around if you left it unchecked. That's what basically any evil does. Almost any evil does that. Especially if it's publicly exposed, if it's exposed to the public. Which is exactly what LGBTQ is. It's just, it's an evil exposed to the public, and it's spread around like a parasite everywhere. It's affected communities. It's forced communities to do these all acceptance things. And what it's also done is try to it's even gotten into like schools and children, like California. I've seen schools and stuff like that with pride parades going around and that. It's very, very evil because it's basically trying to force the mindset on a child that homosexuality is not evil and that it should be accepted, which that's just not true. It's very, very evil. Anyway, that's it for this video. I don't think I have any more to say about this community. It's a very, very a big stark contrast from what I used to say about LGBTQ, because before I used to say like the community's pretty bad, there's these pride parades are being out of control, which it's one piece of it, but I've concluded now that just the entire community is evil. I also would say the same thing about the furry community. Because honestly, I've seen the furry community, it's not inherently evil, not all the way inherently evil, but being associated to it is evil, so basically it makes any furry thing basically evil. Because you should not be associated to a community like that. Well, anyway. Yeah, the furry community, I've also seen, zero good furries out there. None. These burn furs, they're not good furries at all. They're not doing crap to fix the community. Anyway, that'll probably be my next video, is on why the furry community is inherently evil. But yeah, this is basically an updated version of what my beliefs are now on the LGBTQ community, and sooner or later I'll make an updated video on the anti-furry community and the furry community, because there's a lot for me to be said there. I know I've been hinting at me explaining why the anti-furry community is evil, but of course I had to get LGBTQ out of the way, because it's a bigger community, and it's very evil. It's basically, I've seen it a lot affecting people. Fun fact, the month of June is the month we celebrate Jesus Christ. And in June, in Catholicism, that's when they celebrate Jesus Christ. But what, the modern people did was make June where you celebrate LGBTQ and Pride Month, which is a very stark contrast to something evil. It's like the devil did not like the month of June being celebrated, Jesus Christ, because the devil hates Jesus. He hates him. So, of course, why wouldn't he replace his month with something evil? Anyway, again, enough of my yapping. I do love to yap. But that's basically it. For real now. Again, in the near future, I'll probably make anti-furry updated video on that, and updated video on furry community. My Discord server members know what my beliefs on those are. I mean, I've had to ban people over that. And if you want to join the Discord, of course, I have a link in the description of my YouTube channel. So, and just a warning for anybody trying to verify in my Discord server, it is very high on verification. I've made my Discord server basically like a fortress because, of course, I've had homosexuals in my server before when I used to not think these things that I do now. I used to have all these evil people on here, but of course I've banned all of them, and they've got very angry about that. They didn't really like that, and they still can't let go of that, clearly. Especially a particular someone named Tavares, who also, maybe not a homosexual himself, but he definitely cannot let it go of that. But yeah, so the verification on my Discord server is very, very tight. It's very, very heavy. I'm pretty sure we also require you basically be Catholic or trying to become Catholic. But you do need to have like a basic knowledge and strive for like liberalism. You need to know that liberalism is evil and stuff like that. But yeah. Verification is very heavy, so yeah. Again, I think that's all now. Probably should stop yapping because this video is already like 32 minutes long, which is probably one of the longest videos I've probably made now. I don't think I've made a video longer than this one. I don't think. I made a lot of videos over the course of like 2 years. Anyway, goodbye.